Hello, everybody. It's great to be here today. My name is Gary Fowler. I'm a serial entrepreneur and investor. I've been involved in 17 startups and several unicorn. I was on the original management team at Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for 1.35 billion, and also Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. We believe at GST that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. And today I have an incredible guest on Simplenight Presents, Eric Pelletier, former Bain consultant, startup consultant, has worked around the world in strategic areas like strategic marketing and strategic direction for companies. Today we're going to be talking about regenerative travel, doing good while going far. So with that, I'd like to bring my friend Eric on board. Hi, Eric.
Hi Gary, how are you?
Good, good, good. So yeah, I heard some noise in the background there, and so it sounds like it's a good day in Paris. Um, Eric, we talk about sustainable travel and we talk about regenerative travel. What does regenerative travel mean, and how do you think it's different from sustainable travel?
That's okay. My interpretation of it, tourism is very important because if you think about what tourism does, it brings wealth to places that don't necessarily have wealth, and you see, for Italy. After the war, it was essential. For Spain, it was essential. More recently, for Thailand, for Indonesia. So you get this tourism-based economies. So it really brings something. Um,
Yeah, I
at the
mean the
same
thing
time,
is that you're leaving a place better when you leave than it was when you came, right? And we don't think like that. There's one thing to keep it even. There's another thing to make it better, right? So maybe you plant a couple of trees.
yeah, exactly. So on the one side, it's very good, and now sometimes it goes overboard. And there are places in Spain like Costa del Sol, Barcelona. The seaside is horrible. I mean, it's just concrete buildings after concrete buildings. At least in Miami, the buildings are beautiful. There, it's just ugly architecture, very cheap architecture. So I think people realize that mass tourism is a very dangerous thing. So the question becomes, how can you travel still bring something and improve the environment where you go? And to me, that's that notion of regenerative tourism, that not only you bring money, but you bring development. And then,
So
yeah,
when you look at it, with climate change and over tourism really straining these ecosystems, people seem to be looking at these deeper, more meaningful experiences, where you have regenerative travel, it aligns on one side. It's kind of like meditation, right? It aligns with your well-being and at the same time with your global responsibility. It's really, this travel with a purpose. How important do you think it is to people today to travel, have travel with purpose? Do you think we're, on a 1 to 10, is it a 5? Is it a 3? Do you think people think about it now? And do they think about it more than they did 10 years ago?
I think the answer is dual. It's a 2 and it's an 8. You got to segment the population. Okay, you got still a big part of the population, mass tourism, that want to go to all the places they've seen on Instagram and on TV shows, and they want to be there and take that picture by the Taj Mahal because they've seen it. To me, these would be two. They don't care. They just want, and I'm not judging them because I understand the drive to get there. And then you got people more aware of what's going on with climate change, and realizing that actually what they do should not, should enhance the planet, not the other way around. And it also is driven by a change of perception. When you think about it, tourism has always been about experience. the start of tourism was somewhat the grand tour, for the British gentry to go and spend 1 year in Italy, and was a very cultural thing. And then after that, still the Brits, because they essentially invented tourism with the Venetians. But then it was more about finding weather better than Britain. And then, so, just for France, they invented the Riviera, they invented Biarritz on the other coast, they invented in Normandy places. So it's because they wanted weather, good weather, different thing. Now, people, the type of experience they mostly want to have is something more um, more reflective, and that resonates with their values. So you'd like to be able to tiptoe in an environment, actually not destroy it. You know uh, the analogy. You got these wooden planks in on Cape Cod, so you don't destroy the dunes. So that's the image I have in mind. You tiptoe on the environment, you don't spoil it, and you feel something new.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, imagine instead of reducing, we talk about doing less harm, but in the regenerative model, being able to heal. So instead of just taking a trip to the Amazon, go down and plant some trees. Instead of just going scuba diving, restore a coral reef. Um, you know, and we don't think about it. Can we leave things better when we go there, making them better and regenerate rather than destroying them or keeping them where they are? It's fascinating. And you look in Costa Rica, some lodges invest directly in reforestation, employ locals, and integrate with these indigenous people to bring wisdom and to bring really deeper experiences, right? Imagine having the locals come in and tell you about, why this is good and some of their beliefs about it. So you're not just enjoying the nature, but you're contributing to this preservation. Do you think, and this is kind of new, and I've heard some of my friends talking about their experiences in Bali and some of the things that they've done to the Amazon. But do you think that communities benefit from regenerative tourism? Do you think it is a trend? Do you think it's something that's going to grow? Um, and do you think it's something that we have to do?
Question: do we have to do it? Yes. I mean, we are at a stage where non nocere, not doing bad things, is not enough. We need to rebuild, and improve the environment. So is there a need for that? Yes, obviously. Um, is there a trend behind it? Yes, I think, because you see, places like Costa Rica, or I remember President Carter's initiatives, building homes in some places. Um, in France, you have camps where you can go and help restore, old buildings, old chateaus or churches. So to me, there's a real sea change when you go from, I'm just going there, I don't care, my footprint is my footprint, not my problem, to actually I'm bringing wealth to where I'm going, so I'm clean, and then I'm not altering the environment, and then there's the stage we're talking about where actually I'm creating value, and I'm improving where I'm going. When we do that, I mean, we have to be careful not to be arrogant, um, and that's because that's a big issue with tourism, because you come with your set of values, and there's always a tendency to want to teach the locals what to do. Actually, it should be the opportunity to learn from the locals what they do, actually, for the flipping it. But to me, yes, this is going to be more and more a major trend, and actually, so it has to develop, for the planet. It's good, but also, uh, every week, every day, there's more info about places submerged by mass tourism that are restricting and redispatching the tourism flow.
Yeah, no, you're right, because we destroy things, right? We come in
Yep.
and they destroy it. And, the idea would be to be able to come in and support it and help. And, you go into these communities sometimes, like you go to the pyramids, but wouldn't it be nice to sit around with locals and talk about the culture, right? And what you can do better. So, what do you think in terms of role individuals can play, that to be able to help? Do you think choosing accommodations that help and support regeneration, bringing locals together, you think that would create deeper experiences, Eric, rather than just travel where you've gone down through and it's basically responsible travel, and then supporting the local communities? Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think we're too busy and we're just going to just travel and forget about it, come in and out?
I think that at some stage, uh, the much like we understand our carbon footprint, we may act on it or not, but at least now we have no excuse. So when you take a flight, exactly the carbon footprint. Um, I suspect at some stage some economists are going to calculate the actual wealth transfer, um, and the regeneration you're bringing. So you will have no excuse when you book your holiday or your trip to not understand your impact. Um, I think the more it goes, the more people are understand that as a species we have a massive impact on the planet, and now we're at a stage we need to rebuild. There is a great initiative in Dubai. I could not understand whether it's going to happen or not. Because Dubai is brilliant at announcing mega projects and building some of them, but they have a completely a new one that's incredible, where they want to plant mangrove along the coastline, and in essence create a very green place that will be touristy, light tourism, but at the same time is building nature. So that's okay. There is what we can do, and there is what the purveyors of experience can do. And I think the Dubai example is a great one.
No, it's interesting. And how it's like if you travel to the Maasai in Africa, and you have a more authentic experience where you're living in lodges, you're engaging with the community and learning about their cultures, and learning about the nature. I mean, it would change the dimensions. It's not just looking from the outside; it would be looking from the inside out, and it would be would be fascinating actually. And but again, do you think we're really ready for that? Do we have enough time? Because people like, I want to go to visit this. They take a week or 2 weeks. If you're an American, you don't spend that much time. Do you think we're really ready for those deeper experiences? Do we need them, Eric?
No, I think on a personal, when you've done all the Instagram pictures you're supposed to have done, I think you're ready for that. You want something more meaningful, and the meaning is twofold. It's the experience you get, and it's also how you contribute. So there are two dimensions to that. Um, what I see is the issue is that I think there's demand. There's a huge pent up demand. Um, I can. We had discussed this example. Now they got these cruises to Antarctica. Okay. And so I told you the story. I'll tell it again. Where I have this friend who was a very eco warrior, decided to go there because he wanted to take a picture of himself wearing a tuxedo in the midst of penguins. So picture is great, really funny. I mean, brilliant. However, it's a negative impact. The Antarctica doesn't need humans there. You want research, but you
And
don't
did
want.
you say anything to him about it?
I told him what I thought, and we're not friends anymore. So
No, he didn't like that, huh?
I didn't like that. No, because questioning his credentials of eco warrior is difficult. But to me, that's an interesting example because the fact, yeah, taking the example you've taken, you go to a safari in Kenya or South Africa. Um, those places are beautiful, but they're beautiful because there are very few humans. So the problem we're facing is how do we create experience, meaningful experience for the masses. Uh,
Yeah,
remember,
that's the problem. I mean, there's only going to be so many boutique eco lodges, that are out there. And, how do we do it for everybody? Because it
yeah,
can't.
it's exactly an eco lodge at $2,000 a night. That's nice, I would assume. But it's not really a mass market.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, that's a problem, right?
yeah, and so the question: how are we going to build up capacity to offer that? So it means that um, there is a need to start communicating first. I think the getting those metrics about the impact you have when you travel, not just carbon but the other thing, and two, helping people realize that there are actually many things that can be meaningful, such as going someplace for 2 weeks and building houses for the locals or a local hospital or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. How would you measure success in regenerative travel? It's not just revenue, right? It's things like carbon reduction, biodiversity restoration, local employment, those kind of things. But we're not really used to that, right? We think about the numbers. Do you think people
Yep.
mentally would look at, if we could quantify what the carbon reduction is, how much impact we've had on the biodiversity? Do you think that would be enough for people, or is it just going to be for people that are tree huggers?
I think these days most people are becoming tree huggers. Uh, some people still deny climate change. I think this is more like a political football than science tends to be pretty clear. I think to me the metrics would be, of course, your carbon footprint, number one, two, the wealth transfer, and wealth transfer is measured in dollars and job creation. And as you mentioned, I think biodiversity would be very interesting. Um, and all these metrics are, you know, there is now people are beginning to understand the importance of biodiversity. Uh, so what was hardcore tree hugging thing that forgot the name of the owl in Washington, state of Washington of Oregon that needs to be protected.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The not the hoot owl. The I
Spotted
don't know.
it, spotted owl, I don't know,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of weird. But now people are beginning to realize, well, it's just one species, but actually behind the species there's a sub ecosystem, and this is how biodiversity exists. So if we, what it's like everything in business. When you start measuring things, good things happen because you understand. So it's a matter now of creating and providing those metrics.
And now we have the technology. AI can optimize energy use in hotels. Blockchain can verify carbon credits,
Yeah.
and data platform can measure impact transparently. Right? We finally are at a point where we can understand what it is. It's not really replacing that human connection, but it quantifies what's there. How would you think global travel look like in 10 years of regenerative principles scale? What do you think is going to happen?
It's like going back to the history of tourism. Tourism helped countries, accelerate their development. Italy, Spain, Portugal, Thailand, Indonesia, these places. So with this kind of new tourism, you will see new places emerging, uh, places that haven't had the privilege of getting tourism, and now that they have access because they're offering something that's different, and we'll need that because once again, to me, the big issue is the capacity constraint. We got 300-400 middle class Chinese discovering the joys of tourism. um, in 10 years we'll have a similar amount of Indians. So we need to think about capacity now, because obviously it takes, the Dubai project I mentioned. I mean, it's a span of 10-20 years to do it completely.
One of my friends went to Kenya, and while going to Kenya, he went into a local community there, and they talked about their traditions, and they sat around and talked about the traditions. And he said to me, it's more like connected travel, right? You get down into a deeper experience. It wasn't just travel; it was part of being something that you remember. You didn't forget.
Yep. No, you really want to feel something, and to me, when you do the obligatory Instagram picture, it's you're not feeling anything. You're just responding to a social network. To me, it's the opposite of an experience.
If you could say something to travelers, right? It's not just about you going to see something. It's about giving something in return. But what piece of advice would you give travelers that are going out there in order to impact the planet, and what would that be? Right.
First one would be humility. I mean, it's not because you're paying good dollars that you're entitled. Because at the end of the day, and people forget that, you're just being a guest. And as we know, you have good guests and bad guests. You want to be a good guest, so you realize that whatever you do, you have an impact, and the impact goes two ways because um, you need to create that symmetry in your mind, which is I'm going there and I want to feel something. I want the experience. But also, it should be that when people talk to you locally, they're also getting an experience. They're learning something. And once again, just at the beginning of mass tourism, this is what was happening. You accelerated the development of places because people were interacting with people who use telephone every day, and they didn't have telephone or electricity of running water. So to me, the key piece of advice: understand that whatever you do has an impact, and try to discipline yourself to make the impact positive, which is difficult, obviously.
How do you think that people that are interested could start today? What could they do differently when they're planning their trips to be able to look at regenerative travel and giving back?
This is where the internet, this is where good travel agencies should help. And this is where Simplenight helps. You have
Yeah,
access to
because
it.
these are experiences. You can find out where those trips are, where those places are, and you can create unique experiences. It's been hard. I mean, traditionally, if you go to Priceline, you just book the flight and you go over. But this is not about travel. It's about an experience, right? It's a different kind of deal.
Yep. And it's interesting because this is why AI is going to be very helpful, because actually um, you on the face of it, the building houses or a hospital or a dispensary in Costa Rica restoring a chateau in France, and helping with the mangrove in Dubai. I mean, these are incredibly different. You won't find them in the same spot, except AI would understand your needs and what you're looking for, and understand that these three very disparate experiences are actually the same for you. They have the same meaning, they have the same value.
And so coming to the top of the show, closing thoughts, and how do people get a hold of you, Eric?
So people can reach me on eric.pelletier at gsdvs.com. Um, Closing thoughts. It's to recap. This is not a marginal trend. This is very important. It's very important because people are getting sick and tired of mass tourism because we're destroying the planet, and also because mentally we've evolved and we understand our impact. So it is happening and it will accelerate. The second point is, for this to really happen, two things are needed. One, uh, the support of AI to collate all these experiences. Um, and the final thing is making sure supply um, capacity is built, which to me is the big stranglehold. But I'm sure some smart countries, some smart cities or places will understand that actually there's a huge potential behind that.
No, that's great. Well, Eric, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us one more time. And thanks to all my audience for joining one more time. Simplenight presents. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. And we'll be back to you again soon with another exciting edition. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Gary.